Welcome back everyone to Bridge the Divide, where we examine irrational beliefs, the irrational behaviors that often follow, and how with education, rationality, and reason we can bridge the societal divides that they create. Today, we're taking a look at a video from the self-improvement, manosphere-obsessed theist Jacob Swinson, who, between spouting mental health advice at people from the backseat of a car despite lacking any kind of medical or therapeutic background, admonishing people for thinking wrong, calling anyone and everyone who dares to criticize him depressed, and apparently levitating through the power of meditation? He thinks only idiots have thought their way to being atheists, which I'm sure you'd agree is a little weird, because it's usually the people who choose not to think and then wind up uncritically accepting the claims of others for the worst possible reasons that we typically label as being idiotic. But who knows, maybe this before proactive poster boy will be the one to bring the evidence we've all been asking for. Let's dive in.
One thing I've noticed online about a lot of these atheists is that they have a dark cloud of energy around them.
While I get, Jacob, that you're just being hyperbolic in your description of the various atheists you may have encountered online, obviously clouds of dark energy that follow people around like in a cartoon are not things that exist in reality. Ultimately, you have to know that that statement is pretty much meaningless when addressing the position of atheism itself. While you may personally dislike or disagree with, or maybe got your fifis hurt by how an atheist presented an argument, the manner of the presentation says nothing as to the argument's validity or soundness.
I think it's coming from their mindset around life and around just being here as a whole.
While that may be, it is important to keep in mind that you wouldn't actually be logically justified in concluding that their apparent mindset is only a result of them not being convinced that a God exists.
I think what they believe is that they were put here without their own will, out of their, they didn't make the decision. And it was unfair that God put them here. Well, they don't believe in God, but...
First thing to point out, Jacob, it's weird that you would say that atheists, who by definition don't believe that a God entity exists, somehow simultaneously believe that something intentionally put them on this earth. It's a statement that implies the existence of a belief that directly contradicts the atheist position. So right off the bat, you're either ignorantly working with a misconception about what atheism actually is, or you're doing it deliberately in order to better sell your narrative. Either way, it's intellectually dishonest. Secondly, just being an atheist does not logically entail holding to the position of determinism. There are atheists who are determinists, but there are also atheists who are compatibilists, illusionists, and even some who hold to libertarianism. The two positions, atheism and determinism, are not mutually inclusive. And thirdly, I just have to say that it was actually good to see that you caught yourself after conflating your position with the position of non-believers. Apologists tend to do that, probably more than you may think. Generally, they don't really have a high opinion of the intelligence of their audiences, and the intellectual dishonesty of it gets really annoying after a while.
You know what I mean? God put them here.
Which is a claim you have yet to defend.
And in a world of evil, in a world of suffering. And it's unfair that they have to suffer through it.
No, that's actually your position. And what I think you're really referring to here is an argument that is employed to rebut believers called the problem of evil, which functions as an internal critique. An internal critique is when, for the purpose of debate, one person assumes the position of the other person, and then, using that position's own standards, identifies any logical inconsistencies within the position. An example of this would be if you, Jacob, held to the position that your God is both omnipotent and morally perfect in nature. The logical entailments of this position would be that the God can actualize any logically possible world so long as that world is also morally perfect, meaning that it cannot be possible within that world for the conditions that allow for the possibility of something like unnecessary suffering to exist. Unnecessary suffering being things like babies born with terminal cancer, natural disasters, brain-eating amoebas, or survival-based predation, just to name a few, because creating such a world, especially when it was unnecessary to do so, would present a violation of the God's nature. As a world without any of those things that I listed is a world that could logically possibly exist, because the absence of any of those things would not result in any kind of a contradiction. And I think it's pretty obvious that that is certainly not the world that any of us actually exist in. Then it follows that there is a logical contradiction between the defined nature of the God and the God's own actions. So either the God is ill-defined and as such is not morally perfect and or omnipotent and must be redefined, mind, or it just flat out doesn't exist at all. And by the way, Jacob, it's really important that you understand that performing an internal critique does not entail that the person doing it actually accepts the other person's position as being true within their worldview. It's solely a tool used to expose the logical inconsistencies within a position, nothing more.
Okay, what they believe is that life isn't beautiful and amazing, and there's good and bad things, and we could find the good in life and be grateful.
While that may be true for some people, it's certainly not true for all people. This is just a fallacy of composition. I, for one, subjectively think that life has the potential to be both amazing and terrible. For me, it's essentially two sides of the same coin. I just don't hold the position that anything that exists is intended to exist by an agent, because there's no evidence to indicate that such an agent actually exists. But I do need to point out, Jacob, that so far, all you've done is point at people's feelings. You have yet to actually address the position of atheism itself.
They believe that life is suffering, and the fact they have to suffer here is so evil of God.
Again, that's an internal critique of your worldview. It's not the position of atheism itself.
I think that's what the dark energy is coming from all these atheists. And I think that's why a lot of them do not have happy and, good lives.
Speak to the dissatisfaction with your own life, kid. My life is fucking amazing.
It's because they don't see life as a beautiful thing. They see life as something that they have to suffer through.
Like I pointed out before, I view it as a complex tapestry of both. Your God belief may allow you to minimize or even outright ignore the various horrors that occur in this world, but that's on you. And
no, there is suffering in the world. Obviously, you're going to go through hard times. Your parents are going to die. You might have a friend that dies. You might, crazy stuff might happen. You might get paralyzed. You might lose a leg. You might lose an arm. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of evil. And there's a lot of sin in this world. Well, you were doing fine up until that last part when you called all the bad things that happen in this world sin. Now, no matter what etymology you choose to trace it back to, Old English, Proto-Germanic, Latin, Greek, Hebrew, or Indo-European, the word itself has pretty much consistently been used to refer to the concept of being guilty of a moral injury or wrongdoing. And the advent of Christianity didn't really change the word all that much. But you see, therein lies the problem. In order for sin to be a thing that exists, a God must first necessarily exist. And seeing as how, one, I know for a fact that your particular God doesn't exist because it's defined as a logical contradiction, and two, I don't believe in the existence of any kind of unfalsifiable God concepts, the concept of sin has no real-world application for me because it too does not exist. All in all, it's just a label that certain people give to certain actions and outcomes that they subjectively hold to be grievous enough that their particular God wouldn't like them, which, by the way, entails a contradiction, given that an entity that is defined as being morally perfect could not logically perform any action that would result in the existence of the circumstances that would allow for the logical possibility of anything that would, by its own lights, constitute sin. As for me, I accept that terrible things do happen in this world, and I hold that it is our responsibility as agents that are capable of empathy to do something about it because nothing exists to do it for us. But going through it with this mindset that I've seen a lot of these atheists have, that the world is corrupted and everything's terrible and I have to suffer through my life and it's so unfair that God put me here.
One, not all atheists feel that way, and those that do, I can pretty much assure you it's not because they're atheists. Two, none of them think for a moment that a non-existent agent put them here.
It's not the way to go. It's not the way to go. You're going, if you have that mindset, you are going to live the rest of your life in negative mental health. You're going to live it the rest of your life not achieving anything and just being like depressed the entire time. It's just what's going to happen.
Like I said, speak for your own shitty life, kid, because I'm on cloud 9 over here with everything that I want and need. And as a side note, for any atheists out there that may be dealing with extreme difficulties in your lives, there do exist like-minded communities out there that can help you navigate whatever storm you happen to be going through. And we put that effort forward because we know that unjustified beliefs and irrationality will never solve any problem that you may be facing.
So you got to have a more positive mindset around life as a whole. You need You need to see life as beautiful.
As an Eagle Scout, rest assured that I am very familiar with the concept of PMA, or positive mental attitude. And I can also assure you that having a positive mental attitude in no way requires the belief in the existence of a God entity. Try to keep in mind, Jacob, that your personal issues are your own. If you really need to irrationally believe in a God concept just to be able to look at the world in a positive light, I won't fault you for that, but that's your issue to deal with. And you should probably stop wasting so much time and energy trying to validate yourself by dragging everyone down with you and start asking for actual help.
And you need to see life as something that's so amazing that you get to experience.
While that may work for you as a middle-class white-bread male child from the suburbs of America, wearing a $30 ball cap while sitting in a car you didn't pay for parked on property that you don't pay to occupy, you do realize that not everyone on this planet has that kind of luxury, right? Try spinning that Hallmark bullshit to someone who, through no fault of their own, has known only suffering their entire lives. Even better, you could start with the millions of individuals who were sexually assaulted by the Christian leaders that they were taught they could implicitly trust. And by the way, Jacob, are you planning on actually addressing the position of atheism today, or is all of this just another worthless straw man?
And you need to make your baseline for happiness and for contentness the fact you woke up. And that's kind of the whole point of this video was.
So yeah, just another straw man. You're not going to address the position of atheism or what it entails. You're not going to address justification or epistemology. You're just going to whinge about how you think we atheists would be so much happier if we just believed in a God entity. But isn't that kind of the whole issue that's on the table here, justification for one's beliefs? Which of course demands the question, why would you ever expect anyone to believe in the existence of a thing without any rational justification to do so? Because if you think for a second that this is what's providing you any rational justification,
you make me happy.
I'm here to tell you it ain't. And we're gonna skip this section because he literally just repeats all the crap he said before.
And every single human being that woke up today could be grateful for it.
Yeah, that's probably the most tone-deaf, naive bullshit that you could have possibly said. And if you actually believe for a second that any of this is in any way an argument against the position of atheism, it's obvious you lost your critical reasoning faculties along with your Accutane. More tone-deaf nonsense.
And don't have this atheist mindset of, oh wow, I can't believe God put me here and now I have to suffer. That's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Oh, I see what you're doing here. You're not actually talking to atheists, are you? You didn't make this video with the intention of having it critiqued by non-believers, and you didn't make it with the intention of convincing non-believers that your God exists. You made this video specifically for your fellow believers who may be angry with the God that they believe in, and as such may be questioning their faith and potentially turning their back on their religion. No wonder your reasoning is so fucked up. You're not trying to convince me. You're trying to redupe all of those people who have come to realize that belief in a God concept does not actually solve any of life's real issues. But now that I've realized that, Jacob, just between you and me, minimizing these individuals' personal issues by chastising them for simply not being grateful for having woken up to face another day still mired in those unsolved issues is a truly terrible way of trying to convince them to stay within the fold. And we can skip this section because it's just Jacob claiming that even if you have truly terrible things going on in your life, you just need to be grateful that you have the opportunity to have another day to face those terrible things because it's just God giving you all these challenges to make you greater for some as yet unrevealed purpose. Essentially, it's just him giving us the confirmation that his video was in no way made for atheists, which, by the way, is a point that he firmly puts the period on with this statement.
When you have this mindset around life and not the retarded atheist mindset.
While I do get, Jacob, that your desperate need to disparage atheists in the eyes of your fellow believers is a direct result of your profound lack of self-awareness and general education on any of these topics, I think your fellow more educated believers will probably take issue with how bad you're making your in-group look.
You're going to have better mental health. You're gonna have a better day. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna be more grateful, and you're gonna be a better person to your family as well, because your family and friends, because Now you're just a more positive, happy person.
I won't deny for a second that there are people out there for whom irrational beliefs do bring an enormous amount of positive utility, but I can also personally attest that I was able to find all of those things when I dropped the irrational belief in a God concept. Deconverting away from the faith directly led to me being more conscientious of the myriad social issues within my community, which led to me taking a more proactive role in trying to solve those issues. It made me more aware of my personal responsibility for not only my actions but also my inactions as well. It made the world and all of its various issues enormously easier to reconcile. It taught me some much needed humility by revealing that not knowing something is actually a position of strength, not weakness. Overall, it just made me a more positive, proactive, and grateful person. My incredible wife and I have been together for just over 22 impossibly short years, and I can guarantee you that if she had met me when I was a believer, self-righteous, judgmental, confused, insecure, racked with guilt, second-guessing my every move, silently hating who I really was, and ignorantly lashing out at anything that posed a challenge to my theistic foundations, she would have had nothing to do with my dumbass. So sure, belief in a God concept can help some people find some measure of happiness, but happiness itself in no way requires belief in a God concept. In many cases, like it was for me, the belief in the God concept may actually be the thing that is keeping you from finding it. And we're skipping this section because it's just him repeating the whole be grateful for every terrible day spiel, and then he tries and fails at playing therapist when he recommends that people, regardless of their personal situations, just go out and buy a journal and every day write what you're grateful for that day. And he is certain that that's the way for you to solve any emotional issues that you may be having. And then he caps all of that blinkered bullshit off with this little gem.
Fuck the atheists. They're all retards. And they're also all depressed.
Methinks the unlearned waif doth protest too much.
Have you ever seen an atheist online? They all look like so unhealthy. This is just my theory.
Not to be pedantic, but technically that's a hypothesis. Not sure exactly why I'm telling you that, Jacob, because I have zero expectation you even know what that is.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, you are, child, you are.
But every time I see an atheist online, they look so unhealthy. It looks like they've missed sleep and have been eating junk food for the past 5 years.
Well, here's one atheist that doesn't look that way. But you know what, Jacob? Even if I did, my argument would still be sound and your God still can't exist.
They actually, every atheist looks unhealthy. It's very odd. But it's also pointing towards the fact that maybe they're just wrong. Okay, maybe they're wrong.
And the answer to that is no. Whomever you're referring to here, their physical or emotional state has nothing to do with whether or not a God actually exists. And we can skip this last bit because he just repeats the whole be grateful thing yet again. In fact, he pretty much wastes half the runtime of his video extolling that vacuous virtue. So I think at this point, it's pretty damn clear that this video was in no way made for atheists. And I think the biggest clue there was him repeating ad nauseum his tone-deaf rallying cry to his fellow believers. Basically, it's just another prime example of the wanton emotional manipulation that often goes on in theist circles. That said, however, there were actually a few things back at the beginning of the video that I found to be salient to the conversation, so I'm going to address them here. And in the event that you happen to still be watching, Jacob, I'm going to put this as simply as I can. Your reasoning here is all kinds of fucked up. But don't worry yourself too much about it, Chief, because I'm gonna break it down for you. You started your entire video off with an implication that you derived from an extremely limited observation of a particular demographic, that atheists are inherently either angry or sad or some other negative emotion. You then go on to use that implication as a means to justify your titular claim that atheism as a position is invalid. You actually use the term stupid, but I'll hazard you just lack the mental acuity to avail yourself of sufficiently pertinent terminology, because you think that holding a positive belief in a God concept or being a theist will inherently make one happier. And you likely do this because for you, holding that belief has provided a positive emotional utility by enabling you to either minimize or completely disregard some of the more difficult personal and social issues like moral dilemmas that adults typically have to face. And that's because in your mind, you can simply hand those issues off to your God concept, thereby eschewing any responsibility you had for them and any reason to even be concerned about them at all. But like I said, your reasoning here is all fucked up, and here is why. Firstly, your conclusion that any atheist that you may have encountered online are either angry or sad simply because they are atheists is a false cause fallacy. It does not logically follow that because two things occurred together that one necessarily caused the other. Correlation does not entail causation. Secondly, your conclusion that because some atheists appear to be angry or unhappy, then all atheists must be angry or unhappy is a composition fallacy. That something may be true for parts of the whole does not mean that it is true for the whole itself. Thirdly, your conclusion that holding a position that has positive utility for you entails that that same position will have the same positive utility for everybody else is a subjectivist fallacy. Your personal beliefs, feelings, and perspectives are your own, and all it takes is a brief glance at objective reality to see that they are not universal. So in the end, Jacob, just like every other apologist and God-botherer that I have dealt with, your reasoning is entirely fallacious, you don't actually understand what atheism is or what it entails, and you ultimately fail to see the forest for the trees. And while I will chalk all of this up to just you being woefully immature and ignorant, to you just being another broken product churned out by the perpetually online, roided out alpha male self-help manosphere cult, I will acknowledge that you do still have some growing to do, and you should charitably be afforded that opportunity. Unless, of course, you've prematurely closed your growth plates, but even that wouldn't mean you couldn't at least pick up a book or two and try and learn something useful. Now, in the case of people like Jacob here, the effort of bridging the divide really falls more on the non-believer than it does the believer. Individuals such as him have the unfortunate tendency to wind up calling themselves out for their own lack of knowledge of these topics with little to no effort from those they engage with. So it behooves us to try and keep three things in mind. One, that such individuals have inadvertently put themselves in a fantastic place to start learning the basics. Two, that while it is in no way our responsibility to educate them, they do present a great opportunity for us to potentially broaden their horizons. And three, if it does turn out that they are really not interested in being intellectually honest, it's an opportunity to allow them to humiliate themselves in front of the audience. Because while they may refuse or simply be incapable of learning from their hubris, the audience certainly can. And all it takes to accomplish any of this is just a little patience on our part. So with a little consideration, a little generosity, and a little patience, we will either be able to better ensure that both parties wind up on the same page, and as such, with that greater understanding, be able to move forward towards progress, or we'll be able to ensure that through their dishonest and alienating behavior in the discourse, they'll continue to unwittingly disempower themselves in the eyes of the audience and eventually solve the problem for us all. But in order to do any of that, we must first be willing to be the person on the other side of that discussion. Echo chambers only persist when there are none willing to break them. And who knows, there might even be some happiness to be found in doing so. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. We're closing in on 15,000 subscribers here at Bridge the Divide, and I for one can't think of a better way to kick off 2026. So with that in mind, be sure to leave a comment below. I love reading your responses, and those interactions help to push us in the dreaded algorithm. Don't forget, December is HIV/AIDS Awareness Month. The link to where you can support these important efforts is down in the description. And if you like what you saw here and would like to support this channel further, links to channel membership and to get yourself some official Bridge the Divide gear are also in the description. Once again, a massive thank you to each and every one of you for your continued support, and as always, be safe, be excellent to each other, and together we can bridge the divide.